Just a brief recap, it basically is a test scheduling application. It allows multiple roles to request tasks to be completed, and certain privileged roles like such as a manager and a super admin can go ahead and they can actually approve these requests that are made. So for this sprint, we actually had a couple of things that we implemented. The biggest one being our authentication using LDAP and JSON Web Tokens to persist that session. As you can see right here, this is just going to be a regular user that's going to be logging in. And what they can do is now the view is dependent on the privilege level. So unlike an admin who has an admin panel that they can navigate to, they only have the ability to do input a work request. So if we were to input a work request at this moment, it takes a few seconds. But if we were to input a work request at this moment, this work request will actually appear on the admin panel, which we will log in as an admin in just a second. And the admin will actually have a real-time ability to go ahead and approve or deny. We actually spoke to our sponsor about any improvements that they wanted to see on this, and they actually noted that whenever we were going to the approval, they wanted to see that revamped a little bit, so it made it easier on the approver. They didn't have to jump around between tasks too much, so we did go ahead and update that as well. So right here we're going to submit it for approval, and it'll show that the request was successfully created. Went to the right. Now this is an actual, he's a super admin, so he's going to have access to approve and deny this work request. And as you can see right here, it actually pulls up all of our work requests that were made. As we had mentioned, you actually have the ability to view these, which is very nice. So if you wanted to go ahead and view multiple of these, you didn't have to go ahead and click and then click the back button to view back. You would just hit the view button and it would pop up with a summary of it. We also added the ability to either approve all or approve specific tasks. So as you can see, it happens in real time, and the viewer would actually go ahead and see if this was also approved or denied. The other thing that we did is we added a search functionality onto the front end, and I was gonna let I guess talk about it.
So we did the search panel this iteration as well. I worked with Zach and he did all the backend stuff. Our plan for the search is to be able to look up work requests or tasks. Right now we only have the work request working on this field, so if you enter something, it'll basically make a call to the API and then return all the fields that match it. So if you do approved request, you'll see all of the tasks that match that. And then you can click on each one individually and see that same panel with the requests. So yeah, and then for the next iteration, we want to implement the tasks as well, to where what we're thinking right now is to have multiple cards showing the tasks and the work requests. That way the admin can see the two different ones and the matches on them. So yeah.
I think for during the sprint, we actually had a big hurdle to overcome, which was actually the LDAP binding. It turns out that Node.js had after version 8, they had some issues with the binding and unbinding with the default packages that are available. So we went ahead and we actually rewrote our own client to connect and to disconnect from it without that the unbinding taking the unbinding taking place properly. And on top of that, we also had to write our own verifier that would go ahead and verify that the credentials that our users input were correct as well. So that was something that, one of the hurdles that we overcame, and it was probably one of the highlights of the sprint as well. And as far as our test coverage goes, so at this moment, we actually we've managed to bring up the test coverage on our front end quite a bit. Initially, I believe it was around like 75% or so. So we went ahead and brought it up. We are going to continue to work on bringing this up. Just as at the moment we're having some issues with testing some of the functionality, but that's something that we're going to tackle on the next sprint. And for the back end, oh yeah, just come back. For the back end, for the most part, it's over 90% across the board. But we are gonna find ways to test the verifier as well, which is the only issue that we ran into during our testing, and as well as our MongoDB connection, which is handled by a third party. So we have to. We're also going to exclude that from testing since it's not handled by us directly. So that's basically it. As far as like our what we're aiming to accomplish the next sprint, the major deliverables that we promised our sponsors are to have a live task view, a live task log showing. So we're going to visualize that as a graph, and it's going to be all in real time. We're going to have a calendar that's going to display all the tasks that are scheduled whenever the user goes to select it, the schedule date, and we're going to have real-time notifications so that whenever a user's logged in online, they have a real-time notification that their task was either approved or denied, and it adds a better experience to the user in that manner. And I think that was it.